Well, Founders Blend is something that Midland Development Corporation has worked hard to get up and running alongside BAM Entrepreneurial Center, the Midland Chamber of Commerce, Second Story, obviously letting us utilize this space, UT, Permian Basin. We've all, and 40 Wolves with Ryan Shuchuk, we have all seen the past year or so, just Midland is about as entrepreneurial as it gets. And being an entrepreneur, how many of you here are small business owners? It's a lot, right? Like, we can all just take a breath here. Just utilize this next hour to lean on people who, yes, it might be a different business or it might be a competitor even, but they can all relate to being an entrepreneur, which can be really hard and really lonely sometimes. And so all of us got together, those partners that I just mentioned, and we realized we need to create a community of sorts that entrepreneurs can find mentors or they can be mentees. We just need to create a safe space where you can have intentional Q&A and also, be a safe space to ask questions about things that you're struggling with and things like that. So that is why we have started Founders Blend. We are so happy to have you guys here. I mentioned this earlier, but you see these QR codes here on the column. If you guys wouldn't mind scanning that and signing in, that's just a good way for us to keep track of who's coming and keep you in the loop on everything Founders Blend moving. So if you're new to Founders Blend, which a lot of you are, we typically have two businesses present, and they are local businesses. And by present, we mean it's not so much a sales pitch, but it's just an opportunity for them to share their story, but then a majority of the time is spent doing a Q&A with the audience. What are some of your pain points? What are your high points? What are some of the workforce issues you might be experiencing, marketing things? It's just an opportunity to share where you're growing. And you've got an audience here that is aware of all the pains and high points that come with being an entrepreneur. So today you're going to hear from two small businesses, Insignia Hospitality Group and Tall City Sneakers, and you're getting the real spectrum here. We've got a company that has over 700 employees and was started back in 2002, and then you also have a company that is brand new in a lot of ways and started in 2021. So you're going to get that full wide spectrum. And one of those, before we get started, I also just want to take a second to thank our sponsors. I mentioned all of our community partners already, but we also want to thank our sponsors, which is Community National Bank. Thank you for our signs. And then also, we would just love to thank Midland Cap Company for donating hats as well. So Darpin, we'll get started here in just a bit with your presentation. But before we introduce Insignia, which is the first business you're going to hear from, here's a little background on Insignia. Darpin Bhakta is the president of Insignia Hospitality Group based here in Midland. He grew up in a small rural town in Oklahoma with his family owning a small 16-unit motel. He graduated with an accounting degree from Oklahoma State University in 1996, and upon graduation, he declined offers from various investment banks and accounting firms to work for Tharaldson Enterprises in Fargo, North Dakota. And this is where he was introduced to a very fascinating industry that has a lot of potential in all sorts of different areas of business. And he started Insignia Hospitality Group in 2003, and today has 25 hotels and is responsible for the organization's growth and establishing the vision of internal associate growth of individuals. But Darpin, his main passion is the design and execution of real estate development projects with a key focus on establishing efficiency in the development process. Darpin grew up in the sporting world, so he loves competition in sports. He lives here in Midland with his wife and two boys, and he is actively involved in the Midland Rotary Club. So without further ado, let's give Darpin a hand and come on up here and let's learn about Insignia.
right. Good morning, everyone. Sammy, thanks for the great introduction. And I think if everybody can see this. Community National Bank, thank you for their sponsorship. Everybody from here, I've got a history with them. And some of my presentation will say something about banks. But I'll go quick so we can have more time for Q&A. As Sammy said, entrepreneurship was in my blood. We grew up in a small town, probably no bigger than this second floor of this building. Where is it? Yes, I grew up in a small town, Arnett, Oklahoma. You know where it is? Are you serious? Where at? Dale, Oklahoma. We played them in baseball. A small town. Very good baseball program. So there's somebody that knows where Arnett is. So growing up, we did everything. My dad was an immigrant, came here for a grad degree back in 1970. So entrepreneurship was in our blood. Grew up in a small town, not wanting to do what I grew up doing. I worked on a farm for my friends and grew up making beds and doing a lot of painting and all kinds of odd labor work. So going to college, the last thing I wanted to do was hotels. If you grow up in a family business, that's probably the last thing you want to do. But I was introduced to this organization who was a teacher. And once I got out of college, I actually gave up a lot of career financial investment firm offers in New York and Charlotte to go work in Fargo. And it's probably the most passionate I fell in love with was hotel real estate. And today we are a real estate company that specializes in the hotel world. We partner with Marriott, Hilton, and IG. IG is the Holiday Inn brand, if those of you guys aren't aware of it. Marriott was one of the most difficult things that we ever did, one of the most motivators that I have. I carry his business card on my back pocket to remind me that they told me no for 5 years. Today, we're one of their biggest partners in the country in doing real estate development in California as we opened our first hotel in California several weeks ago. Our mission is to be a great hotel, create great hotel experiences first, and that is the operational agenda. That's a different topic we talk about, but that's what we live to inspire every day. And our vision is to do hospitality great. We are a hospitality company. We have two divisions, hospitality, which is the operational world, and the development world, which is the front end of our organization. This is our humble beginnings, little bitty place. This little window was my brother and I's bedroom. And this is where my childhood is. And I still remember my childhood of how we grew up, how difficult it was for our parents. And today it is an inspiration for us. We got to Midland in 1998, and the story is very short. It goes very quick. My parents moved. If you're in the real estate world, we had the RTC crash in the late 80s, mid-80s, late 80s. And real estate was very bad because of oil and gas. And my father picked up an asset, pennies on the dollar, in a small town called Fort Stockton, Texas. And I was in college by that time. So my brother had the privilege of moving to Fort Stockton and going to school there. I finished college, but every time I come here, we always land at this airport, which is not as beautiful as it is today. And we would come here to go eat out, watch a movie back in the mid-90s. And I found something intriguing about Midland. And so I did my work. I worked in corporate America, did all this kind of stuff. And I had to convince my father to build an oil and gas town, one-dimensional town. And he said, we're never going to go to an oil and gas market. Think about it. I was 22 years old at that time, fresh college graduate. We had no hotels. He just sold everything he had and trying to figure out what the next step was. So I was working in the hotel real estate world, and it took me 7 months to convince him. And we did our first project. Opened in 1998, November 23rd, to be exact. The day before we opened, Chevron announced 1,000 people were going to get laid off. Oil hit $9 a barrel. If you guys remember those days, if people are in this room, I thought I made the worst mistake convincing my family to relocate to Midland, Texas. Well, here's the how and why. And I'm going over my 2 minutes. I'm going to try to finish this quick. It worked. one thing I learned is go to communities where there's a need. And there was a big need in Midland. So we developed it, opened it, and did very well at $10 oil the following year. Because we didn't have any new assets in this town. Midland did not have any new assets at that time in this town. So we did well. It was common sense. Today, and even as we grew our business, we've always had challenges with labor. We are a blue-collar business after a hotel opens. Labor is always an issue, but in Midland, we have a dominant oil and gas industry, which is great. We love it. We're part of the community. We're part of the oil and gas community. However, any other industry and any business owner will have these challenges because of labor and what we compete against with wages. However, we figured out how to work in Midland. We came very close to relocating our corporate offices in 2013 to Southlake, Lubbock, or Katy. Because it's hard to hire intelligent capital and get them relocated here in our space. We are a real estate company. We need designers, we need architects, finance, capital, different intelligence on the real estate side. It's hard to recruit that here. But a very good mentor of mine told me some of the biggest hotel developers in the country started in communities like Midland, Texas. Maryville, Indiana is the largest hotel developer in the country. Fargo, North Dakota, the gentleman I worked for. Monroe, Louisiana. Today, they're still based there today. So we decided to stay here, build our headquarters, and make it work, which was the best decision we made because today we realize it's easier to raise a family here than in Dallas. Our community is small, but our community is made up of a lot of smart people because of the oil and gas industry. This is our growth. Established officially in 2003. We were true entrepreneur. Started with nothing. We had an office in our house. Then we went to a space about as big as that room before we built our headquarters. And our massive growth was between 2011 and 2020 because somebody gave me a chance. And that somebody was a gentleman that lived in San Antonio. And as an entrepreneur, you're also a salesman. You have to convince somebody to give you a chance. You're fighting against bigger people. And once you get that chance, you better go prove it. You got to get one little door in. And we were given that chance, and we railed off probably around $200 million of development in 9 years. That is pretty tough to do. And there are new development assets. And some of our opportunities are local community banks. CNB is one of them. And one of the challenges we're facing today is the ESG-driven, media-driven issue. It's affecting real estate pretty bad. And the one reason it affects us is we live off of community lending. And the community lending is getting tougher and tougher because of regulation by the government. And a lot of them are selling out. One of our great partners just got bought out by a large regional bank here in town. And that will affect us. We have to go find community banks. But it's harder to start community banks today. So we'll see how that will go on the next couple of years. Hopefully the ESG movement is a fad. It'll kind of fade out. In Texas, the Attorney General and them, they're kind of pushing that agenda not to hurt our community banks. And some of our achievements. A lot of accolades. We put a couple of them on here. One of the biggest accolades is the 5-time Marriott Partnership Circle of Excellence Award. We're one of only 3 companies that have achieved this, and we're not based in Dallas or New York or Chicago. We're in Midland, Texas. And our associates are the reason why we have relationships like this with Marriott and Hilton. We sit on different advisory boards at that level. So they are really, Marriott is really a organization that really thrives at growing smaller developers into larger developers. And our company, as Sammy said, we are today 700 plus associates. Annual valuation is getting close to $500 million in Midland, Texas, right? We're not based in Dallas. And today, our organization is based in 2 different worlds. Development, which basically has professional people, finance, accounting, capital planning, procurement, project management, purchasing. So we have all that based here. And then, of course, the operational side, which is our strength. We do that very, very well. we do run very good facilities. Even our older ones do a very good job. It's the people that we have. Organic growth. We literally started with one person. We hired her in 1998 to run one small property. She is still with us 23 years later. So organic growth is what we believe in. We don't go buy and hire somebody's talent. We grow it internally, and that's one reason we've been successful. Our chief operating officer is in this room, organic growth individual. Started somewhere, and today she runs this entire division. And she's well known in our industry space nationally today. These are some of our assets that we've developed. 95% of our assets we developed ground up. We have bought acquisitions. I think we bought 5 hotels in the last 15, 18 years. And this is our company. I want to keep it short. I'll leave it at that. I want to open it up for Q&A. I'm sure there's questions, and appreciate everybody attended, and thank you for letting me be a part of your community and my community today.
Well, thank you, Darpin. Do we have any questions off the top here for Darpin?
Of the 700, how many of those live in Midland, and how did you convince them to come here versus going and working for a competitor in Houston, Dallas, Austin?
Great question. So the leadership team, about 20 of them live in Midland, Odessa. The leadership team, the main leadership team that runs the organization. Of the hotels that we own, Midland and Odessa, we probably have about 100 that are Hotel Pacific. But the 20 is probably more directed to your question. And it's the challenging part is selling Midland. Once you sell Midland and you get them involved in the community outside of work, they're going to be here. My wife is from California. My sister-in-law is from California. They would never leave Midland today. How to convince them is create a work environment that they can grow in. If you're working for a large organization, it's hard to move up that corporate ladder. When you're a growing company, and when you're smaller, you grow so quickly, and if things really turn your way, if you really believe in organic growth, you're taking that individual, giving them an opportunity. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the financial dollar sign. It's you as an organization. What can you do to better somebody's career path? You can always go work for Deloitte, which is a great example in Dallas. A lot of them cap out after 4 or 5 years. That 4 or 5 years is the learning curve to convince somebody, give us that time. You'll be somewhere different, probably better financially in 4 or 5 years, especially if they're in the late 20s. Hopefully that answered your question.
So 2020 was a difficult year for hotels. What are some key lessons you learned as a leader and a manager to navigate through the pandemic?
Great question. That is a common question after 2020. I'll start with this. A big picture is our industry probably was hit the hardest. Hotel industry and the food and beverage industry. It went from here to nothing. So we're in our offices trying to figure out how do we save, first of all, employees' jobs, right? That's point number one, when you have no income coming in. So it was a day-by-day conversation. As we saw stuff on the media, right or wrong, we were adapting to that every day. We were lucky because we're in the great state of Texas. And even better, we were actually based in Midland, Texas. The joke today is what was COVID, right? We did everything to follow what media was telling us. The challenge we had is we're listening to brand companies based in the Northeast. Big picture. Shut stuff down, do all this protocol. So do we follow that? Because they didn't know what they were doing either, right? So we adapted every day. And one of the things that we did, and then I'll take it, Rachel, who's here, we really didn't lay off anybody. You hear all these mass stories about layoffs in the hotel industry. We did not lay off one person, not one person of our associates. We figured out a way to give them work, even though there was nothing to be done. So today, hindsight, 3 years later, we learned that people are more important and you listen to your people than you listen to media. And what leaders of a big publicly held company, because they didn't know what they were doing either, you can't blame them. So our people got us through that by listening to them and giving them an opportunity to pay bills. I mean, that, at the end of the day, that's what it was. The flip side of that, we got through it. The community banks, again, got us through that because they work with us. Anything that was what we call CMBS debt that was institutional, I spent 90% of my time hitting my head against the wall to deal with that. That was a tough challenge. And then we had one lender that got bought during COVID that came in and gave us a hard time because it was a larger lender, a great asset that was still performing. So we had a lot of lending challenges. And I think the government, and I think we had the right guy in office at that time, the regulators looked the other way for 18 months. That allowed us to get through it. Good question.
Darvin John Elphick. We've talked over the years, but I think this is the first time we've actually met. I just wanted to ask about your site out at Westridge. Can you talk a little bit about the scope of work and timeline for that development?
So we actually have two sites at Westridge. Which one are you talking about? The one next to the Oxy building?
Yes.
Okay. So that we are, in the next 3 months, we're going to revisit that project and probably think about what we're going to do with that, probably the same type of brand. We were ready to start that project, but because of COVID, the best time to build for us was during that time. There was a window. If we look back today, the pricing was great. However, when we went to go price it, after that window, outside that window, the supply chain became a big problem. And the price was impeccably high. So we kind of held back, and we're kind of waiting to just kind of get back to some type of normalcy to start doing that. But we are going to do that project.
We are going to hear from Tall City Sneakers next. It's a locally dreamt and owned business that started with a family conversation over dinner, and it's grown into a flourishing business. It was founded by local Midlanders Michael and Vicki Sanchez, along with their two children, Noah and Hope. They are just regular people, they say, who had an idea and just enough courage to say, hey, let's try it. They love God, people, and sneakers, and they have a blast doing it. Michael, without further ado, Michael Sanchez.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for everybody for the opportunity and being here, letting us share a little bit of our story with you. I am Michael. I'm a local, born and raised. I'm actually a full-time pastor. My wife, Vicki, is here joining me. Noah, this is all Noah's fault, which is our son, just graduated high school and Midland College, and believe it or not, started a job on Monday. So even though this is his dream and his baby, he is built different, so I'm here without him. So, yeah. So full circle moment. We actually started Tall City Sneakers downstairs over dinner in Cancun Grill. Walking around downtown one evening, started a conversation, ran into a friend who encouraged us, kind of pushed us, kind of kicked us a little bit to make the leap, and we said, hey, let's do it. That was November. We got in touch with Lauren with the micro market, which they're awesome, and our first location was actually right down the street. Started 1 month later, December of 2021, and that was awesome. We outgrew that space a lot faster than we anticipated. We actually rented another office around the corner because we ran out of space, and running back and grabbing shoes and all kinds. It was a disaster, but it was a great disaster. And we moved out of our space downtown into our location now, which is in the shopping center where TJ Maxx and Home Goods is, July of 2022. So it's been an awesome experience. We are family owned and operated. Like I said, I'm a full-time pastor. My wife has a full-time job. Noah was a full-time high school student at the time. And Hope is a freshman and wants to do very little with anything with the shoe store, but she loves shoes. So we are ministry-driven. Like I said, I am a pastor. we use all of the resources and gifts that God gave us for his glory, including our shoe store. I'm in a secondary campus almost every day of the week during school, and shoes are an awesome tool for me to be able to start conversations with children, and that leads to a lot of different avenues and a lot of different spaces. We are community-minded. We try to do as much and a lot with the community. Something as simple as having a conversation with an individual. Like I said, I am a full-time pastor, so that kind of gets entangled. We do have a Saturday morning Bible study at our store every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, open to the community. Anybody can come. And we just spend time with people kind of educating them on what we do, the sneaker market, the sneaker world, and how it works. There's a lot of things in there that people don't think about, but it's kind of wild. And we counter the culture of what we do. One thing I did not like whenever my son got into sneakers in junior high was when we went into the marketplace to buy shoes and spend time with people who had shoes for sale, big brand sneaker stores and things like that. You never know what you're going to hear and experience when you go into those spaces. So when we went into a store, such as Brand X, I won't say the name, the music that was playing was not something that I wanted my son to experience at his age. So we spent very little time there, even though it was one of our favorite places to go. So we counter the culture. You will not experience that at our store. It's a safe place. It's a family environment. None of our employees use vulgar language. None of the music that is played in our space is any obscenities or wrong message or anything like that. We try to treat people like we want to be treated and with the family dynamic in mind. We are a resale shop, not a retail shop. A lot of people don't know that. So we don't have any like big brand accounts or anything like that. We're not set up with Nike. The problem with getting set up with Nike is we can't sell what we want to sell. We have to sell what they tell us to sell, right? A lot of our shoes are very hard to get sometimes. So a lot of times we have to pay up for the product that we sell. 70% of our inventory is we bought at resale prices we did not get for retail, which creates challenges and opportunities in the same breath. So yes, there's that. This is just a coffee and kicks that we had right downstairs on the corner in the last summer, which was great. So we try to do stuff within the community just to cultivate what we do. Dream big. This is my son, Noah. Like I said, he just graduated. This is all his fault. Noah dreamt big and said, Mom, Dad, like this is what I really want to do. He got really into sneakers in junior high. You know, your kids go through phases. Like, oh, yeah, this will go away. A couple of months. Well, it never went away for Noah. It just kept growing and growing, and it became a problem, and it became an expensive problem for Mom and Dad. So we had to figure out how to pay for these things, and we found out that there's value in sneakers. So we bought 3 or 4 pair, sold them, and that's how we bought Noah shoes. So that's how it kind of started. We started with $100. That's a different story, probably for a different day or maybe for a Q&A. But there is a story behind that. Currently, we have over 10,000 social media followers across our social media platforms, which is great in the span of time that we've been open. We have 0 debt, which is also an awesome thing. When you don't owe people money, you can kind of breathe a little better. So that's a great thing. We just launched a website this year, March of 23. If you're thinking about launching a website, don't do it. I'm just kidding. Get some professional help to help you because when you're a small business owner, sometimes, as most of y'all know, you have to figure stuff out on your own. And we figured that out on our own, and it was very difficult, but we're very excited for where we're at and what that looks like in the moment. As of yesterday, I checked. So since March till today, we have 78,000 unique visits to our website in that short amount of time, so I think that's great. Year one was wild. So we opened December 21. So full calendar year last year, 2022, 7-figure sales, which is like from a conversation with the kids and my wife downstairs at a restaurant, like just an idea, right? To like, okay, let's try it. To like 7 figures in the gross sales, right? That's not like money in our bank account or anything. for year one, I think that was like beyond our wildest dreams anyways. So just as, that's not a flex, that's kind of like an encouragement. If you have an idea or a concept or thinking about something, like, it can actually happen, right? Because it happened for us. But more than that number, the most important number to me is the number underneath it. Because we are ministry driven and that's kind of how we live and breathe. 3 salvations happen at our store with the relationships and conversations that we've had. 3 people that we've got to meet have changed their eternal address from hell to heaven. Which that, like, we can shut the doors today and the business has been a success, right? So yeah, what's next for us? We kind of have an idea, but we don't know. Like, it's been a wild ride so far. This is like our side hustle, if you will, like, because we do have full-time obligations. But we know that we're going to keep growing through relationships. That's how we grow our business. It's one person at a time. It's one event like this at a time. One relationship at a time. So this guy right here, this funny-looking guy right here, his name is JC. He's like the guy in sneaker world. JC has a massive, awesome store in Caesar's Palace. But we met him at a sneaker con a few years back. Very amazing guy. But we treat JC as we treat everybody else. I tell our staff, like, I don't care if a little booger-nosed kid comes in by himself and he wants to try on all the shoes that you know don't fit him, you make sure that he tries on every single shoe that he wants, right? That's just what we do. We do have plans to expand to another city. Our sister city, Odessa, is like the most logical thing to do. So hopefully that's happening very soon. One of the challenges for us is we are a small business, but we have big dreams. So that's a challenge because we don't want to lose who we are and our personal touch and our personal relationships, but we also want to keep growing, right? So that's a challenge for us, something that we're tossing back and forth all the time. One of the biggest challenges for me, and I'm sure Noah's going to see this, is like this was Noah's dream, right? Like, and we're just helping him like live that dream out. But like Noah, like, I guess dreams change and things change, right? So Noah, we give Noah the freedom to like do, not anything he wants, but to a degree. So like Noah started a new job this Monday because he feels like he's going to learn and grow and it'll be a great experience for him. And maybe he'll come back and the business will be better because of the experiences he had. But that's a challenge for Dad, right? Because like now, hey, Dad, see you later. But yeah, still keep going with the sneaker store, So yeah, so that's a thing. This is how you get a hold of us. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, tallcitysneakers.com. We're really excited about YouTube. We think that's a big key for us to grow in the space that we're in outside of the Permian Basin, coupled with the website. Yes, sir. We're trying to hit the first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. We're about 75% there. But that's hard because that's another thing to do, right? Another thing you have to learn and cultivate and get good at because nobody wants to look at something that's not good, right? So that's us in hopefully under 6 minutes. I don't know how I did. But that's very challenging, especially for a pastor, to do anything under any time frame. So, yeah.
I'm impressed. Well, any questions here for Michael right off the bat? I have one real fast. I mean, you talked about how this is not your full-time gig. Oftentimes, that's how small businesses start. It's a side hustle. It's a passion. And then eventually you have to pivot and decide where your priorities are and where you're going to spend your capital, which is often time. So how do you do that balance between, your 9 to 5 and then Tall City Sneakers?
So from the beginning, God's people and ministry is my priority. So that comes first, regardless of what's going on at the store. And I know that's not a great business model, and that's not what people normally do. But we feel that this was given to us by him, so we have to honor him through it. So for me, sometimes that means waking up earlier than normal, staying up later than normal to make sure that our ministry doesn't suffer, and then having key people in place to do the things to take stuff off of my plate so I don't have to do as much and focus on the things that are more impactful in the least amount of time available.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we're going to trade out mics here in just a bit. But real fast, I mean, clearly you're on top of the social media, growing really fast. How do you stay on top of everything marketing? Because it just changes. Week after week, there's, a new formula of some sorts. There's a new way to do a TikTok or a new trending sound. How do you stay on top of it for a business like yours where it's visual? You got to see it a bit.
So I am older, on the older end, right? So I rely on the younger generation. Something that would take me like half an hour to do, they can do like in 30 seconds, right? Just because they're more familiar with it and familiar with trends and what's happening. Even shoes. Like I know shoes, but Noah knows shoes, right? Like he knows releases that are coming out years later. I have no idea how he got that information. So I rely on people who are better than me at doing that. I kind of cast a vision and make the vision clear of what we want our perception to be and look like, and then give them the freedom to operate in that gifting. Sometimes, and I'm honest with them with the feedback, sometimes I'm like, man, that was awesome. Sometimes like, man, that was not good. But they learn and grow from that, and they respond very well when you're with honesty. Yes, ma'am.
It's on? Oh, nice. Curious, super competitive market, going along with what you were saying about the trends. Curious to know roughly the percentage of sales in the sneaker con world where you got to travel and pack up and bring all this stuff and entry fees versus local in-store market. And second part, what's your strategy now that you've launched the website to essentially make money in your sleep by online?
Yes, great questions. So for us personally, SneakerCon, Sneaker Expo, that type of marketplace, we sell 0 products in those spaces. Yeah. Reason being is most people that sell in those spaces don't have the opportunity of a brick and mortar space. They're smaller scale resellers who have like an Instagram page or just a social media following, and they're like quick flipping these sneakers. So we go to those places, especially when they're close in proximity, Dallas, Austin, that kind of deal. And we go to purchase product there. And we go to develop relationships with people that do what we do. That's been key in us being able to stock inventory and get it at a competitive price, is making those relationships. I think the best way that we're going to be able to drive our online space is YouTube. When we go to these shows, we meet people, we get great content, and YouTube is a space where we can reach the country. Once you develop a good name and people want to see you, then you can let them know how to get a hold of you and where to purchase your product. So I think that's an awesome tool that we have for us. Instagram has also been awesome marketing for very little expense. So Instagram is also a huge tool for us as well. Yes. Any other questions? What will you call it? The store in Odessa, that's a good question. So we're sticking to our guns. It will still be called Tall City. This is where we're from. We love our city. And we think other people will love the brand of our city as well once they come to know it. So we have thought about that. But yeah, I think that is, for now, that's my answer. Yeah, it will still be Tall City. That might not be good, but I think it'll work. Anybody else? Yes. So that's Noah as well. So Psalms 119 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. So obviously Noah tried to tie in shoes in some way, a lamp to my feet. But we really believe that. We really believe that. The Bible is like a great business model. The Bible talks about finances and wealth more than any other topic. It talks about it more than heaven and hell combined, actually. So all of our principles and the way we do business is founded on our faith. But yeah, that's why Noah chose that one. He was trying to tie in something with shoes and feet and what we do and what we're about. Yeah. And that's great. We put that in all of our promotional products, and it creates accountability for us. We're not a company that just slaps it on just to look cool or cliche or target a market. We did that because we want to be held to a standard higher than I could ever develop or create. So that's also why we have that on there.
I'm curious if y'all built most of your social media organically or through paid reach. I mean, I know that usually there's a combination, but I'm curious what y'all's strategy was on all of these different platforms.
Yes, ma'am. For the most part, it has been very organic driven. The only time that we promote any type of content or post, if it's some sort of giveaway to the community. We'll have a back to school. We're probably going to run a Father's Day one this week. Different things like that. We will spend some dollars to do that to try to reach more people. But yeah, it's all been, for the most part, organic. We've probably spent, this is probably not the best business practice as well, but we've probably spent less than $1,000 in marketing in the span that we've been open, which is, I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. It's working. Yes, ma'am, it is working. Yeah.
I imagine being a minister teaches you a whole lot about people. What has running a sneaker shop taught you about people? Because you never know the customer that's going to walk through your door or that you're going to have an exchange with on social media. What have you learned about customers?
People want to be known, and people want to be seen. Whenever I get to spend time in the store, which is mostly on weekends, I'm not trying to sell shoes. I'm trying to make people be seen. I'm trying to, because kids follow our social media, you'd be surprised. They see me or Noah, walking in the mall, they're like, oh, that's the guy from the sneaker store. And we're just regular people, right? So I could be like, hey, nice to see you. Or I can go to that child and be like, hey, man, what's your name? What's going on? What's your favorite shoe? How'd you hear about us? Where you go to school? That's what it's about. Shoes, like I said, shoes are hard to get. Another thing we spend a lot of time on is educating people how to pay retail for shoes. How they have the tools and availability to at least attempt to pay retail for shoes so they don't have to come to me and pay resale. That's also not a great business strategy. But it's educating our audience. It's spending time with them. It's adding value. And that goes a long way, right? So that's one of, I guess, our tools, just letting people be seen and respected. And even if they're absolutely wrong on an exchange or something, we just make it right. We'll figure out the numbers or what it costs us later. We just want to be right with people and our name be right in their mouth. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Michael. Let's give him a round of applause. Well, we want to be cognizant of everyone's time. We hope you got something out of Founders Blend. I want to let everyone know our next Founders Blend is going to be July 12th, same time. It will likely be at this place, but keep in mind that in the fall, we are planning on moving around locations. So we will likely have a few meetings at the UT Permian Basin Seed Building, which is brand new and in great shape to host something like this. So if you live on the west side of town, that's good news for you. And so keep following us also on social media. We'll pull it up here in a bit. Ryan, would you mind putting up our social media here? You can stay in the loop on everything Founders Blend by following Founders Blend Midland. You can follow us on Instagram. We don't have a TikTok. Instagram, Facebook, also our website, just so you can keep in the loop. And then if you are a business, a local business, and you are interested in presenting or volunteering, you love this idea of mentorship or being a mentee, please let us know. Or if you would like to donate, today we had coffee by Second Story because they had some extra coffee beans here. But usually we would love to have a local business provide coffee or, breakfast snacks of some sorts. If you would like to get involved in any way, please let us know. The best way to do that is to fill out the forms on our website. And then, hey, maybe you had a great time today. Bring a friend in July. Bring a friend this fall. And then, hey, you loved the presentation. You're in luck. You can go back and watch it, share it on social media. We will have it on YouTube and all. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And feel free to grab some coffee, stay around, and mingle and get to know each other. The more intentional you are, the more you get out of things. So with that, have a great rest of your June and a good start to your July.